All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Hope you're all well and you have your favorite warm beverage on hand. Thanks for joining for another month of regional housing forums for the Blue Hill Peninsula. In case you were watching this now or later, I'm Greg Paduke, Regional Planner of the Hancock County Planning Commission, and each month we host one of these forums to talk about a different housing related topic relative to what's going on in Maine and on the peninsula. And in case you forgot, I will also pop a link in the chat. All past recordings and future links to future meetings are on our website that you can access at any time. And the videos are on YouTube as well. This month, very excited to be joined by Joey Smith and Julie Curran of Great Falls Construction. And I will spare sharing any background information on them because they're very good at explaining who they are and what they do down in Gorham, Maine. And so when you guys are ready, I'll hand it over and we can begin. And I'll just mention there will be time for questions as we go on and after presentation is done. So if you have any, feel free to ask at any point.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Greg, and thank you everyone for joining us and listening to us this morning. It's nice to see a lot of faces on here. We did the same call last week, and um, I think Greg's only a repeat customer, so he's going to hear the broken record that we might be. So apologies ahead of time for that, Greg. But um, I guess first off, I'm Joey Smith with Great Falls Construction. And JCS Property Management, which we'll get into. But I do business development and marketing here at the company. And then I'll turn over to Julie to quickly introduce herself.
Sure. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I'm Julie Curran. I'm the managing director at Great Falls Construction and JCS Property Management. Thanks for having us this morning.
Um, and I just wanted to say this all came about by us attending Great Falls Construction, attending the Maine Municipal Association conference back in what is that, September, October, in Bangor, and I ran into and met Olivia Jolly, who's with the Hancock Planning Commission as well. And she emailed us a month or so ago asking us if we'd hop on because we met there and she knew what we did for work. And I just love bringing that up because that's just what it's all about. So just again, happy to be here with you this morning. I'm going to quickly just run through a little bit about us with Great Falls Construction. We're based in Gorham, Maine, as was mentioned. Great Falls Construction, or then it was Great Falls Builders, was established in 1988. We primarily did residential work in the early 90s, and it was actually started by my parents, John and Cindy Smith, who are also Julie's parents, and therefore making Julie my sister. So it's a family owned and operated business still to this day. But now we primarily focus on commercial construction. We started some real estate, or I should say, my parents started some real estate acquisitions and development work in the early 2000s. And I like to tell people that kind of grew from a hobby into a full-fledged business that it is today. So Great Falls Construction, commercial builder, we do work for commercial clients or primarily in Southern Maine, but all over the state when needed. But from that basis of a construction company came the JCS Property Management business that operates today as a full-fledged property management company. And yeah, that's kind of how we got started there. I like to add this picture here. It was from a home show back in the early 90s where you could build a 24 by 34 cape. They're offering a show deal at just under $70,000. I thought that was a kind of funny anecdote for today, just to show where things were as far as costs for us back then. That is not a deal for today, unfortunately, but you can reach out if you have interest in that sort of deal, what that looks like today. And like I said, so this is some examples of Great Falls Construction's work today for clients and the type of work that we do. Starting in the top left, that aerial shot there, it looks like foundations and stairwell and elevator towers. That is a picture of the MSAD 51 Cumberland North Yarmouth pre-K through first school that we're building. That drone shot's only a week and a half, 2 weeks old, so pretty current where we're at as far as progress. So foundations are going in, as you can see there. And then to the right of that one at the top is the another school project. That's Biddeford Primary School. It's a right around 11,000 square foot footprint, 2 stories, so 22,000 square feet of new school addition space. That drone shot's coming up on a month old now, so also loved that shot because it's got a great sunset picture in the background. And then fittingly, bottom left-hand corner, I don't know if Alan's driven through the Wells train stop quite yet, but that's the new Wells pedestrian platform at the Amtrak Downeaster stop in Wells. A pretty unique one for us to be doing, but it is a great project. That's one thing I want to also add. We don't really focus on a particular industry or niche sort of construction type. We like to say we just do construction. So as you can see, this kind of is a full swath of what we do for work. And then to the right of that one is a commercial fit up project of a industrial building we did for Roe Ford and well, this property is technically in Portland, but it's right in the Westbrook Portland line. This is in the Pine Tree Industrial Parkway, but commercial truck care center that we just wrapped up in the last month and a half. So pretty significant renovation there of a commercial project. So on top of that, we do a lot of multi-unit housing, mixed use buildings, affordable housing builds for clients. So I said schools already, a lot of municipal work, public safety, public works, town hall type of work. So that's just to give you a taste of what we do on the commercial construction side of things for clients. Go to the next slide here. Now switching over to the development side of things, I just wanted to give a quick list of the municipalities that we've done development projects in. You can see those on the right. A lot of those being Cumberland County. We've got, Auburn and Androscoggin County, but then Berwick and York County. And Julie's actually going to drill down on a couple of those developments in the following slides here. And actually, she's going to start right now. So go ahead, Julie, if you want to take it over.
Great, thanks, Joe. Thanks for setting that up. So yeah, Joey did a great job just highlighting the work we do for clients day in, day out for our commercial construction portfolio. I'm going to take some time to dive into the meat here around our development portfolio, which I think is the hat that we're here wearing today. And I really encourage you, if you have any questions, please just jump in along the way. The way in which I'll present this, I'll do it such as a case study, just to give a quick synopsis of how it came to be, the development came to be in two areas. And I know based on our prep call with Greg, there was we talked about capital stacks and subsidies and how project plans come to be. So please just jump in with any questions you have along the way here. But I'll start with, so what you're looking at right now on your screen is what we call the edge at Berwick, Maine. For those of you not familiar with Berwick, Berwick sits on the New Hampshire border of Maine, so it's right at the bottom. And this site, if you look at the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see before shots on the top and bottom. That used to sit as 27 contiguous building for the former Prime Tanning Facility, which is a leather tannery that focused on making baseball gloves and boots for the Army. So that was it was 27 contiguous buildings, and I'll say about 10 to probably close to 15 years ago now, the town of Berwick really got involved with trying to figure out how do we create economic vibrancy at the former Prime Tanning facility. So the Prime Tanning facility, it officially closed in 2008. It went bankrupt. It had closed once or twice before then as well, but I really served as the economic hub for the town of Berwick. If you can just sort of circle around the town hall of Berwick so we can orientate folks. If you can see Joey's mouse there circling, that's where the town hall is. And so you can see it's very, very close to town hall and sort of the economic center, as I said, of Berwick. And so this site has a lot of historical significance for Berwickians, as it served as a really large employer for many years, for many generations of families. So what you see on the left-hand side is the before photo. And so those were taken in I'm going to say 2020. Great Falls got on the scene in 2019, and really what had happened prior to us getting involved was the town of Berwick town manager, excuse me, of Berwick sent us a handwritten note. He was familiar with some of the work that we do in development. And a lot of our development work centers around village centers. We really like to work on or around main streets to create sort of that economic vibrancy, mixed use. We believe a lot in mixed use facilities and the need for density for businesses to succeed. And so, so he had seen some of the work we've done in other municipalities and wrote us a handwritten letter, and it really caught our attention because I know many of you can probably attest to the fact that we don't get many handwritten letters in the mail anymore. So so it really piqued our interest. We had some discussions with the town manager to understand the history of the site, and ultimately in October 2019 we purchased the site. Prior to us purchasing the site, though, the former owner, who had been an investor in Prime Tanning, and he worked very collaboratively, excuse me, with the town to remediate the site. So the site is a brownfield site. For those of you familiar with brownfield sites, you know what that entails. If you're not familiar with that, there's just some covenants that must be adhered to, quite a few covenants. And so it was designated with brownfields, and the former owner and the town worked together to establish a temporary cover system. And that's just a fancy way of saying to temporarily encapsulate any of the contaminants subterranean, if you will. And I'm oversimplifying that, but that sort of gives you a sense of the work that was done. And that took about a decade to do, to get the funding and really get that together. And we talk about how imperative that is for our interest. If that work hadn't been done in advance of us sort of coming on the scene, that would have been a challenge from a timing perspective and a financial perspective to get done.
Sounds good.
So, yeah. So, oh, sorry. Does someone have a question? No. Okay. Great. So that sort of gives you the backstory of the project. So October 2019, we purchased it. As soon as we purchased it, we kicked off with listening sessions. I think I counted we had about 12 listening sessions with the community. We all know what happened in 2020, so some of those had to happen virtually, as we know, but it was a really great opportunity for us, outside of any public process or required process, as developers, to understand the pulse of the community and what people are really looking for in their downtown and village center space. And so those are all on YouTube, and you can find them if you search the town of Berwick's YouTube. But really, it was a great opportunity to just listen. So we did that. And then the listening sessions turned into update sessions that we do intermittently. So with the community, just to give a sense of where we're headed. And again, that's all outside of the public process. It's really just an opportunity to engage the community and for us to be able to give updates in a timely manner. And so we went through pre-construction. We ultimately, from purchase in 2019 and ultimately got our approval in February of 2022, and we got going. And so on the right hand side of the screen where it says current, that was taken probably this summer, so it's actually a little dated now, but you can see it's good orientation to see that L-shaped type building on the left hand side of the before. You can see it over to the current side. So that was the only existing building that we kept. And that's been renovated into 8 commercial spaces. It's full. It's got a daycare, a butcher shop, a gym, hair salon, pizza shop, et cetera, inside of it. And then it's also coupled by a few, and Joey, if you can go to the next slide, actually, some better pictures there. Thank you. These are just a close-up of some of the photos you just saw from an aerial view. So on the top left, that yellow building is 8 Main Street. So that's a 12-unit building, 2 commercial spaces, and 10 residential one-bedroom apartments. The bottom left, unfortunately, it was a cloudy day when I snapped this photo, but that's that L-shaped building I mentioned before with 8 commercial offerings. Top right of your screen, you see a 7 residential, 2 commercial spaces. We've got a coffee shop and a chiropractor shop. And then the bottom right are 2 12-unit, 2-bedroom apartments. So once this site is fully built out, so if you can go back a slide, sorry, it'll have 265 apartments on it and about 37 commercial offerings, plus or minus. So I'm going to pause right there to see if there's any questions before I jump into sort of capital stack questions and excuse me, capital stack statistics. Any questions about how we got here? Okay, well, don't be shy to just hop in.
You probably said this, but was this all in the end market rate housing, or was some of it targeted to low moderate income?
Yeah,
Is any
thanks.
of it Section 8?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So it's a good question. All of our development is market rate development. So we're market rate developers. So it's not there's not sort of in the walls financing, if you will. However, we do have, and we do obviously offer housing to folks with vouchers, and we just work directly with them and their housing authorities to figure out the details there. But ultimately it's market rate housing. So in other words, we don't have any subsidies to offset it for affordable housing, if you will, by means of the definition of affordable housing. So yeah, that answers your question. Good. Okay, so I think just in terms of, like I said, in our prep call, we talked a little bit about capital
Hey, Julie.
stack and
I
go
have a
ahead.
question.
Becky has
Yeah.
a question.
So when you say affordable, I mean, when you say work with vouchers, is there a limit that you accept from the voucher programs?
So the short answer is that's a good question for my property manager. She works directly with the housing authorities to work on the specifics, and every, depending on where the voucher comes from, it's a different, there's a different amount and a different rate. And so she works directly with them. So I would say that there's not necessarily a minimum that we work with. We work with people, and sometimes that's gray area. So we just work directly with the housing authority and the tenant to try to figure out a solution. But it, again, it is market rate housing. And so sometimes that especially for the 2 bedrooms, for example, that number is tipped in a direction that doesn't necessarily pencil. However, the 1 bedrooms, we found that there are a few folks, and we're talking about Berg right now, but we have properties in many other municipalities, and we understand the need for housing for our community, obviously, as you all do as well. So yeah, we just work with people to try and figure out an agreeable solution that works for them and works for us as well. And sometimes we don't come to that, but we do try hard to make sure that it can work for our neighbors.
To work for anyone? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I said to work for our neighbors.
Right. Okay.
Did I not answer your question, Becky?
Oh, I'm sure I have about 5 others, but I can't.
Yeah, please. No, well, I'm happy to answer.
So is there an assessment of the kinds of people with affordability? Is there any kind of affordability of the needs of the people of that area? Like how many people would need 100%, or how many people would need 30% and all that. So is there even a study of that in your environment?
There are lots of studies of that. We work with, on this project, just because this is the example we're working on, we work closely with SMPDC, which is it's Southern Maine Planning Development Commission, which is similar to other county organizations such as Hancock County, and what have you. So we work. They cover York and Oxford counties. So they have a lot of that data and statistics with them. I will say, however, York County, this project happens to be in York County. The AMI for York County is quite high, and so it's not really as you can imagine, like it's a catch-22, if you will. Market rate housing tends to sit between 80 and 120 of AMI, and so this project hits that target.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks. And so I think that those were my high level. I was just going to skip to capital stack. So one of the questions, so I mentioned earlier that this is a brownfield site, and many of you are likely familiar with what that means, but if you're not, just a quick synopsis of what that is. So what you're looking at, and what we showed you for the buildings is a vertical construction. There was a lot that took place horizontally on this site. If you see the before and the current. So Joey, if you can just take your mouse and highlight Main Street for me. So Berwick didn't have a main street, so we worked with the town to establish a main street that bisects this property. So Joey's mouse, if you can see that, It shows the bisection of the property through Main Street, which connects two of their major corridors, travel corridors in the town. And so that was really important. And, we've only started on one of the Main Street buildings, 8 Main Street, which was the yellow building you saw before. But we have plans to really to put quite a few buildings up Main Street in future phases of the project. And so we established Main Street. We also established a couple other lanes, excuse me, of the property, Edgeway and Unity Lane, just for internal circulation purposes. And then under subterranean, if you will, is usually the boring stuff, but the infrastructure here, it does have public water and public sewer. Which, as you know, in development is ideal, specifically for this size development. So we have the luxury of that there, but also we've had to install like a 60-inch pipe, for example, through the site for wastewater, stormwater management, excuse me, yeah, so that's and obviously catch basins and filter units, et cetera, et cetera. So lots of horizontal work happened on the site as well. In addition to what I just explained, there was a couple off-site improvements. This project, because it's about 9 acres on the property, is subject to a couple permits from the state level. So DEP site law, so SLOTA permits, if you're familiar with that acronym. Which is a site law development permit where they focus on stormwater, which I mentioned before, and then also the Maine Department of Transportation, MDOT, for the traffic movement permit, which otherwise known as the TMP. Lots of acronyms, but that's really just to say, like, what is the trip count to the site intended to be at full build out, and what will we need for intersection improvements, for example, or pedestrian improvements to accommodate for that added density. So we worked with those municipalities, and so that we have a couple intersection improvements that happened last site work season, and then this site work season coming up. Once it thaws, we'll get going on some pedestrian improvements as well. So yeah, that's my synopsis on case study 1. Any questions before we flip to another example?
I have a question. Looking at the current site, the buildings that are in the forefront near the trees, that is part of the work that you've done as well?
Correct.
And the area behind that, which looks almost like it could be a perfect ball field, is that going to be developed, or is that going to be a green space?
So where Joey's sorry, Joey, can you circulate the rear quadrant? That area?
Yeah.
You see that? Yeah, so good question. That currently sits as the last phase of the project. And so when we got our planning board approvals, that final phase, we're required to go back to planning to get to fully authorize. Our initial intent was to build a multi-unit building there. Right now it's serving as laydown space, as you can see, for some of our equipment. So it's really, I guess my answer is the intent is to have some building space on that. This site is required to have 25% open space on it. So we have quite a few pocket parks, if you will, that will come about on the property. And it's hard to see in this depiction, but if you look, Joey, can you just circle around 3 School Street, like the front of 3 School Street? South a little bit. Other way. Yeah, right there. Thanks. So that area Joey's circulating, it doesn't look large here, but that is actually, so we've been working with the town of Berwick to make that sort of a town green space, if you will, with potentially a gazebo, ability to have some concert, some electrical for concerts and what have you. So I guess that's a long-winded answer to say the rear quadrant is TBD. Currently, our plan is to do a mixed-use development in a large part of that space. And then there'll be pocket parks sprinkled through. And what you can't see in this depiction is that Berwick has a trail system. And if you see where the Edge logo is, there's a parking lot behind it. That's also part of our development, that parking lot there. And adjacent to that is the entrance to the fire station. There's also trails that connect up, past the station there. And we really wanted to make sure that the site, if you were taking a trail, there was opportunity to stop into the village center vis-a-vis that. So the town's really, I can't take any credit. The town's done a great job in coordination of that. But yeah, green space is important. Again, 25% of this is required to be open space.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart.
So if I can jump,
Please. Oh, I see hands. Scott, yeah.
yeah, if I can just jump in. So, I guess the question is So on the Blue Hill Peninsula, we probably have less restrictive zoning or construction rules than maybe Berwick, because I'm not aware of any local towns that have, a requirement that green space be set aside and so forth. We sort of look to the owners to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, and a related bit is looking at the design. So how was the design of the especially the multi-unit buildings? How was that kind of derived? Was that, sort of your design? Was it guided by Berwick's? Do they have some, I don't know what you'd call them, but
Yeah.
aesthetic rules floating around?
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you. So,
Yeah.
because I can tell you the one on the lower right-hand side and probably the upper left, probably they don't really look like Blue Hill Peninsula type buildings. So, how was that set, and how do you kind of assuming that it's not dictated to you, how do you gauge that?
Yeah, good question. Thanks, Pat. So there are minimal design standards. So it really centers around material. And there you have to have they don't want vinyl siding in their village center, for example. So what you're looking at is LP Smart side here on most of the buildings. So aside from that, though, the traditional, I mean, this is our is Great Falls' dictated design. I mean, John Smith is our owner, and he cares a lot about architectural detail, and he spends a lot of time choosing the details with the architectural teams that we work with. And then Cindy on our team chooses the colors, which these colors are from a palette of a traditional New England sort of color palette. So yeah, so really it's but during the planning board process, Scott, we show like really like rudimentary renderings just to give them a flavor of what we intend to do. The purview of the planning board is really the site, and to make sure that we're achieving the required design standards that I mentioned earlier. However, they don't dictate it, and yeah, this was really our chosen traditional New England detailed architecture.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Becky.
So what kind on the open space, the pocket things, and maybe a general question about what kind of control the renters will have on that space, and would they be able to do a community garden, or would they be able to, is there going to be like a group that can decide whether they can have panned, some kind of festival on them, how is that going to be dealt with?
Yeah, good question. So this whole it's interesting, Becky, because this whole site is one lot. So there's no lot lines in this site, which is great because you don't have to deal with sort of setbacks internally and what have you. But ultimately, if you're living or working on the site, it's shared communal space, really. So we're a big proponent of grass because grass can be utilized for many things, whether that's for walking your dog or having a festival, as you note, or having some of the businesses set up a bistro table or what have you. Yeah, we're big proponents of that. So it's really the in the lease agreements we detail out, there's a process to go through if you're trying to reserve and not allow other people to use the space. We've got to work with that. Like, for example, there is a daycare I mentioned, and again, you can't see really well in this depiction, but Joey's mouse is circling around a playground space, and so that playground space is fenced off and utilized for the daycare. for their licensure reasons, it must be during their hours of operation. And so that's a good example of like, that's dedicated space for them outside because it's a requirement of their use. However, that's really the only space on there so far that is designated. Otherwise, it's meant to be open. And we intend and fully hope, and it's actually a reason why Main Street is a private road. It's part of our road. Excuse me, part of our site, so it's private road. So we'd be able to shut it down to have festivals, and they already have in the town. They've done their annual car shows. They had their day in the park, which is they right in front of town hall. They have a stage set up and they have music and festivals. So they've been able, we've worked with them to just put up Jersey barriers and shut things down. Oh yeah, Joey's showing you right now. They put up a hot air balloon right in that green space for their festival day.
So
Yeah,
when you said pocket parks, I just had this picture of, living in Cambridge, these parks in these developments with a bench on it that nobody sits on. So that's why I like the idea when you said open space and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Oh, I mean, like I said, we're big proponents of grass so that we can do things like this, what Joey's showing here, to have, people be able to utilize it for a multitude of different things. So yeah, that's a good example. Thanks, Joey, for bringing that up.
I'm curious, this is a somewhat larger scale project, I guess, compared to others. I'm curious if you just have a general feel for construction and development companies, what the appetite is for smaller scale projects, and if they feel like it's a good investment for them, and if there are any particular challenges that come along with doing something smaller size.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think absolutely there's an appetite for smaller. And Joey, can you flip to the Red City Yale picture? I know I'm jumping around here, but I'll show you an example. But while Joey brings that up, I think the only challenge that comes, one of the big challenges that comes with small scale development is, I mentioned earlier on the Berwick site, we've got a lot of horizontal work to do, and there's no revenue that comes with horizontal work. It's just straight cost. Straight expense. So that can be challenging on a smaller development because you can only bear so much for the rental or for the sale or whatever you're intending to do. And so I think when you think about like where these smaller scale developments are located, ensuring that they're in places of close proximity to sidewalk infrastructure, for example, or if not that, like that, there's not a requirement to add sidewalk infrastructure for the development, so that those costs, those horizontal costs specifically, don't drive up, and make the pro forma not pencil. So while Joey has this up, on the top left hand side is a small scale development. That's a 3,800 square foot former fire station in the town of Wyndham. So the town of Wyndham put out an RFP. They had built a new fire station and were looking to but to redevelop the former fire station. And so we responded to an RFP, as did other developers, with our concept. And ultimately they chose the concept they thought was best for the area. And so they chose our concept, which is just a small local pub restaurant. And you can see it looks very much like a fire station, but it is a restaurant in there. And that's a small an example of a really great way to reuse municipal infrastructure, municipal buildings for public and community benefit. So I think that just brought that up. Does that answer your question, Greg?
Yeah, this helps. Thank you.
Yeah, and while we're talking about existing municipal infrastructure, I might as well flip to the right-hand side of this. It's actually my former elementary school, and Joey's as well. It was sort of I think it was a 10 classroom elementary school in Gorham that we converted into 55 plus apartments. So that is also a small scale development as well.
Do you got your hand up?
Oh, Kathy, hi.
Hi, I think the building on the bottom there is your example of senior housing. Can you talk a little bit about that project and any other projects that you've done for senior housing, how that came about, the process for the housing development itself?
Sure, yeah. So actually, it's a good question. Thanks, Kathy. So the top right is actually the senior housing development I was referencing there. And so that I guess pretty simply that that property lends itself, just in terms of its location, lends itself really nicely for elderly housing. It has really great walking trails. You can't see from this photo necessarily, but quite a bit of green space. There's actually the town of Gorham has a baseball field that's in close proximity to it. So it's a really nice sort of communal feeling. And as we were sort of contemplating what to do with this project, we felt like it was just a natural fit to have it as an elderly 55 plus housing development, excuse me. So
Can I ask
a
a-
similar, oh, please.
I was just going to ask a question. Are you talking about the building that's on the bottom left, the red building?
No,
Is that
sorry,
not
I'm
the
talking,
senior housing?
no, the top right, the single story.
Oh, no, I mean, that's a conversion of existing building. I'm talking about the one that's on the bottom left, which I
Sure.
believe on your website, if you go through and you look at your projects, I believe that shows up as under multifamily housing.
Yes, yep, it is, yep. Yeah,
And
oh,
it
sorry,
says
okay.
it's senior, it says 60 unit senior affordable housing building in Westbrook. That's the one I'm
Oh,
interested in.
sure. So actually that is a different, it looks similar to this project, but it's a different project. What you're looking at the bottom left here is not a senior affordable housing, but the question, that is a 33 unit, 33 residential unit market rate and 6 commercial units. The project in Westbrook that is senior housing that you're referencing is the Stacy Symbol project. That's a project we did for Westbrook Housing Development. Westbrook Development Corporation, which is Westbrook Housing Authority's project. So that was for a client. So we were their construction manager on that. It wasn't one of our own developments. So all the pre-construction work for the financing and sort of figuring out the senior designation was done by Westbrook Housing and not by Great Falls.
And you were just the construction manager for the project.
Correct.
Okay. Have you done any other senior housing?
Of our own development or for clients?
Well, besides the 2 examples here for either way.
Sure. Yeah, we've done many for clients. So we've done many for Avesta, who's a large producer of affordable housing in the region. We're doing one right now in Lewiston. It's a 40 unit total gut and rehab in Lewiston for a developer out of New York it's affordable housing there as well, senior affordable housing there as well. We've done quite a bit for we mentioned Westbrook already, and others that I'm blanking on right now. Sorry, Kathy, but yes, we've definitely done quite a few for clients.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, great. Unless there's other questions, I'll just flip to my the second case study. So this is in Androscoggin County, 186 Main Street, Auburn. I thought this before picture was great. It shows sort of the economic development director in Auburn was working on selling off some city-owned land, and I think they had about 6 sites, and they might still have a couple for sale, but this was one of them. And really, what happened, how this came about was I got an email from the economic development director. I think it was just an email blast that piqued our interest. And so ultimately we went to Auburn and got in their car and drove around and just saw the sites. And this one really spoke to us. This sits right on the Androscoggin River, not right on, but it sits on the Androscoggin River, as you can see from the photo. And the city really wanted mixed use. They want some commercial space on their main street. This fronts on their main street. So they really wanted some vibrancy there, and they wanted celebration of the river as well. And so on the rear side that faces the river, there's also a large commercial space. And so we've got 2 commercial spaces in here, and then 18 residential apartments. Apartments was also something that the city really wanted. This sits next to the brick building. You can see on the right-hand side, it sits next to a brick building, which is affordable housing that has been there for many years. And yeah, so this will be market rate housing that sits next to it, and it'll have some studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedroom apartments, and we'll be finished with it this month, March. So yeah, we're working on a tenant fit up as well, and this one was it's a great example. I mean, the city of Auburn did a great job advertising it. We went through the public process rather quickly because the city really kind of knew what they wanted, and our wants aligned. So it kind of made it simple, kind of quick process. And because it's a smaller, Greg, you had asked earlier, smaller, for us, this is a smaller development. The footprint is just over 6,000, or just around 6,000 square feet. So, so yeah, it was, those tend to go a bit faster, in the planning process. So that's 186 Main Street. Any questions about this project?
What was the site before?
Yeah, it just was an urban, it just was a, it's hard to tell from this photo, Stuart, but it's quite sloping, in nature, and it was just a, urban fill site. So it was actually, it had some contaminants that the city removed and permanently capped prior to us purchasing the site. So otherwise it just sat there as a, grassy hill, if you will. Inaccessible, because you can not a great photo on the left, but you can see there's a concrete kind of pavilion, if you will, that looks out over the site, that you weren't able to access. It's so steep. We'll have some abilities on the rear side to access up into the building. So yeah, it's just sat there as a blank property. Great. Well, I think if there's no further questions, we'll flip just to the last slide, which you've already seen. And I think I've given a quick synopsis, but really the top two photos are great examples of projects that came out of municipal request for proposal processes that we responded to, and then worked really closely with the municipalities to develop sort of what we both envisioned. And then the bottom left is a property that sat as a it was a warehouse space, sort of sad warehouse space, if you will, right in the rear of, in the village center of Gorham, behind Hannaford, if you're familiar with Gorham. And so this was, it says on a property that used to be home to a train station. And so nodding to the history of the site, we modeled this, the architectural details ourselves to try and get it to look somewhat like a train station. So it sits on Railroad Avenue, and it's called Station Square. And like I said, it's got 33 apartments and 6 commercial spaces, one of which is a bowling alley and restaurant that occupies much of the first floor. And I think that's all I've got for today. So I'm happy to take any final questions or comments, and appreciate your time, and thanks for listening.
I have my hand up. I'm curious about, I mean, it's really intriguing. You say you get handwritten notes or you respond to an RFP. Is that typically how things get started? I know it can get quite cumbersome. Sometimes we talk with a developer and others will say, well, that wasn't a fair process. And have you had any sage advice on how you navigate that issue of having a fair bidding process to
Yeah, for
competition?
sure. Yeah, it's a great question, James. Thanks for bringing it up. So the handwritten, I'll go back to the handwritten note that came to us. That property was privately owned. The town did for a short time purchase the property to help with grant funds for the prior owner for cleanup, but ultimately it was in the hands of a private owner. So the handwritten note was really to sort of pique our interest, if you will, to have negotiations with a private owner. And so in that instance, it didn't have to go through public process because it was a private to private entity purchase. However, if it's a publicly owned property, which I had mentioned, many of the projects we've done are like 186 Main Street in Auburn, for example, was a publicly owned property. In that regard, they had it for sale, so we paid for it, and that's sort of the fair process, if you will, in that regard. However, in Wyndham, I mentioned, Joe, can you flip back to the Red City Ale photo? Thank you. The top left here, the former fire station, and on the top right, the former school. Those were obviously municipally owned, and they really wanted to see specific development there. So their requests for proposals were specific, and your score on sort of the rubric, if you will, of how well the developer scored was contingent on whether we were meeting the objectives of what the town wanted. And that was, so That was a request for proposal process that was sent out. Again, we responded. They deliberated it at council and then ultimately selected our proposal. And so that was how they met the competitive process, because ultimately they got what they wanted. We also went, I want to mention, because this is a good example too, we also went through a process with the town of Wyndham on a former school property that's been vacant for years that they really wanted to develop, and their requirement was 51% of affordable housing, and then a mix of housing. They just wanted housing on this site. And so we partnered with Westbrook Housing Authority to jointly submit a request, a proposal, if you will, to respond to that, where Westbrook Housing will develop 51% of it, Great Falls Construction will develop 49% of it, and we'll have a mix of income housing on this one lot. And so that was, there was other respondents as well, but ultimately, our response was congruent with what their desires were of the municipality and of the board at the time. So, or the council, excuse me, at the time. So yeah, that's how we've seen it addressed in many municipalities through publicly owned property. Either they sell it for like a market rate sale, and really the kind of highest bid wins, if you will, or if they really have desires of what they want on that property, they'll issue a request for proposal and put some requirements of what they want to see developed there. And then the respondents, it's incumbent on the respondents to either meet that, or if they don't meet it, then they're likely not selected.
So is it those specifics that attract, a Great Falls Construction or another company to respond, or what else about a proposal, I guess, piques your interest in being part of the project?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the bottom line is the request has to be congruent with your business plan or your desire as a business. And like I said, we really like to be in village centers. So when we see those, they naturally pique our interest. Other people potentially like to be, doing other things, or industrial development, for example, or what have you. And so I think it sort of depends on what your business intent is. And so I think that's the first thing. And then secondarily, we really enjoy collaborating with municipalities. Like when we find when an RFP comes out and it really aligns with our interests, like we get excited about working together to figure out how we produce this facility or produce this offering for the community. We like placemaking. We really like sort of going to places that appreciate that and value that, because we do too. So it's like anything, right? You find the right fit, and the rest of it seems to sort of fall in line as well. It's not always exact, it's not always exactly like this Red City Ale space. The parking was a big challenge at this facility. They only had a few spots, and so we really worked hard with municipality. And I applaud the municipality for working so hard to figure out how we supplement the parking. And ultimately, we were able to use, there's a public lot that's 4-minute walk away, that was able to sort of suffice the requirements for parking. But those are the types of things that you work through as a team. It's a collaborative process, and we really enjoy that. So I hope that answers your question.
Becky, go ahead.
I'm back to economic evaluation, and so when things are built, is the job market looked at, and how that impacts what is considered affordable housing, and also whether there are banking support systems for this affordable housing, or do they put undue pressure on what's considered affordable?
Yeah, so I will, Becky, I'll speak to my limited knowledge. I'm not an affordable housing developer, so I'm not as educated as my colleagues who are developing affordable housing. So apologies for that, but it's not really what, it's not the line of business that we develop in. However, your first question was, do we look at the economic viability in the area, or offers in the area? So Red City Ale is a good example. It's in the South Wyndham Village, which is a developing area. It's near the Keddy Mill, if anyone's familiar with that mill. It's right across the street. And the economic development director in Wyndham, Tom Bartel, had done a lot of sort of research, if you will, around what would be successful there. And ultimately that again, it just goes back to that collaborative process. We work together to, and that's well staffed, and it's a great offering to have in that village area. But I can't really speak to your question around housing because it's not really my area of expertise.
So I just thought I had heard you say affordable housing, that this was, some of this was aimed at affordable housing. So I just wanted to know what that definition was and what powers, affected that.
Yeah, so I think maybe what you're thinking of is someone else had a question about the bottom left photo and whether that was affordable housing. And I'm sorry for the confusion. That's not. We did for a client in Westbrook. We built an affordable housing building that looks a lot like that project, which is why there's confusion, I think. But so affordable housing is Maine Housing is has, if you go to Maine Housing's website, you can see how they go by county, and it's in some instances city, to designate what is affordable for a studio, 1, 2, 3 bedroom, for a family size of 1, 2, 3, etc. So Maine Housing has that on their website, and to my knowledge, that's how it's prescribed, and it's based on AMI, so the area median income of counties. And in some instances, like I know Portland's broken out on its own, but I'm not sure if that's for every city or not. And so, anyways, that's they designate 60 to 80% of area median income is a certain threshold, and then 80 to 120 another threshold, and then 120 and above is not inner threshold or whatever. So and they supplement their funding based on that chart. So if you go to Maine Housing's website, you should be able to find that. And they're really the governor, to my knowledge, of what is affordable and setting those affordability rates.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I was
sure.
just really curious how much, private banks, corporate-owned banks and stuff affect those numbers.
Yeah, so I mean, not to get too far in the weeds, but affordable housing developers have subsidies generally from HUD in order to, like, the LIHTC, low income housing tax credits, for example, that help offset the reduction, because construction cost is construction cost, and there's no sort of reprieve, if you will, for affordable versus
right.
more. Right. So the subsidy from LIHTC, for example, and there's other programs that I'm not privy to, but LIHTC's the big one, that allow for them to build at the rate in which we all need to build at, the cost at which it takes to build it, and then they can rent it for the rates that I mentioned earlier on the website. So that subsidy from HUD helps to offset it, and that subsidy from HUD is funneled through the Maine Housing. And so private banks, to my knowledge, don't really get involved in that. Really, the financer is Maine Housing for those deals.
Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
I'm wondering, however much you can, if you can talk about the property management side of things, because that's a consideration around here is, okay, we'll build something, then afterwards, who takes care of it? And the residents and the tenants inside. And so any challenges, positives, takeaways from that side of the process?
Yeah, it's a good question, Greg. So we're lucky we have a great team on staff, on our JCS property management team on staff. We have a property manager and property maintenance team that maintains our leases and maintains and communicates with tenants. We also have softwares that help. There's a lot of them out there. And a lot of new softwares too that we keep learning about, but that's really helped as well, just in terms of communication. But yeah, we have it in-house. But I know others don't necessarily, that's not part of their business model and might be looking for external third party, but we ultimately have it in-house. So, and that's an intentional investment because for the stewardship of our properties. Sorry.
how's that relationship typically with the occupants? Is it generally smooth, or what kind of
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, we have a great team. So, and they come from the hospitality industry, and so just have really deep rooted understanding of customer service and just yeah. So we're really lucky.
Great.
Great.
Any final questions or thoughts?
Well, I'll just say real quick, thank you, and I appreciate your time. And if you have any follow-up questions or ever want to connect, I think Greg has our contact information, and we'll be able to share that out. But thank you so much. It was nice to see you all, and I appreciate your time.
I second the thank you, and you'll find us at the Maine Municipal Association conference next year. So come by our booth. I'll probably be there. Julie tends to come at least one of the days, and as well as our dad, John, the president of the company. So come by and say hi.
Excellent. All right. And again, this is recorded. Link to that will be shared. I'll share Joey and Julie's contact information. And hopefully we can get the slides at some point too and send those out. Any follow-up questions, reach out to them, reach out to me. And as always, any ideas for future topics, speakers, and things along those lines, pass along to my email address or anyone at HCPC. We'd love to talk to you. And so next one, we're still planning for next first Monday of the month in April. Um, Date off the top of my head, not there, but I'll be reaching out and informing you all on April's topic and everything else moving forward. So until then, stay warm and thank you for joining us once again. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great Monday.